The winner or loser of this election, not going to be me. The winner or loser of this election is going to be you.
Everything that they've done, every person before us, all that sacrifice has come to this moment right now.
That we are going to win on November the 8th.
Welcome back to SMU-TV's election night coverage. I'm Peter Warner.
And I'm Grace Lawrence. The polls have just closed and we are getting our first look at early numbers. We also have reporters standing by at the Dallas County Democratic and Republican watch parties.
And later, one of the Hilltop's political science experts will join us live in studio for his take on the night. But first, let's get straight to the latest numbers coming out of Dallas County. There are 7 statewide races, most notably for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. In the gubernatorial election, it's a race between Republican incumbent Greg Abbott and his Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. These are the early voting numbers. O'Rourke is winning in Dallas County 64% to Abbott's 35%. Statewide early voting numbers are not in yet. The fight for lieutenant governor, the second highest executive office in Texas government, is a familiar one. Incumbent Republican Dan Patrick and Democrat challenger Mike Collier face off for the second time in a repeat of the 2018 race for lieutenant governor. In that race, Patrick beat Collier by more than 4% of the vote. These are the numbers coming in now from Dallas County. With 0% of the precincts in, Patrick is behind Collier by 30%.
In the race for Texas Attorney General, it's Republican incumbent Ken Paxton versus Democratic challenger Rochelle Garza. Numbers from the state aren't in yet. These are Dallas County numbers coming in now with 0% of the precincts reporting. Garza has a 64% to Paxton's 33%. 37-year-old Garza is a civil rights attorney. She's remained the underdog in the days leading up to the election. Paxton is seeking his 3rd term. Democratic incumbent Clay Jenkins faces a challenge from Republican Lauren Davis for Dallas County judge. With Dallas being reliably blue, an upset would be a huge surprise. Let's take a look at the early Dallas County numbers coming in right now with 0% of the precincts reporting. Jenkins has a 64% of the vote. Davis has 36%. Jenkins has served as Dallas County judge since 2011. Davis is a first-timer running for public office.
This year's race for Dallas County District Attorney is a rematch of the 2018 contest between Democratic incumbent John Creuzot and Republican Faith Johnson. Right now, early Dallas County results with 0 precincts reporting show Creuzot is up 61 to 39% over Johnson. Johnson lost to Creuzot 4 years ago. We have crews stationed at the Dallas County Republican and Democratic watch parties.
We begin our team coverage with SMU-TV's Jordan Stallings. She's at the Dallas Republican watch party with the latest on what's happening there. Jordan?
Guys, I'm here at the Dallas County Republican watch party at Smoky Rose on Garland Road. People are just starting to trickle in. The doors didn't open until 6:30, so while it looks relatively empty behind me, soon it will be filled with Abbott supporters who are looking to secure another win tonight. In recent weeks, we've seen Greg Abbott's margin of victory bounce around between 5 and 10 points. Analysts say while it's always been a solid lead for Abbott, O'Rourke has remained within striking distance. Abbott has focused much of his campaign on the economy and immigration. Many people are anxiously awaiting to see if he'll be in office for another 4-year term, including the estimated 200 people that the watch party chairwoman is expecting to gather here tonight.
I'm very, very optimistic. You're seeing what's going on around the country. There's no reason why that's not going to happen in Texas. And in Dallas, we've been blue, or we've trended blue, but we're seeing a lot of crossover votes. And if you look at the numbers and analyze them, it's trending the Republicans' way. So I don't know if we'll win all of our races, but I think we're going to pick up some races that people are going to be surprised that we pick up.
We will be here all night long monitoring the results as they come in, and we'll check in with you guys once we hear from more Abbott supporters. Until then, for SMU-TV, I'm Jordan Stallings.
Thanks for that report, Jordan. Now we'll head over to SMU-TV's Millie Stevenson, who is at the Dallas County Democratic Watch Party at Gilley's Dallas. She has a look at what's happening there. Millie?
We're here tonight at the Dallas Democratic Election Night Watch Party. The star of the show is Jasmine Crockett, who is running to succeed Eddie Bernice Johnson in U.S. Congress. The doors don't open until 6:30, but you can already feel the excitement start to brew for what's to come tonight. As recent issues like abortion, gun control, and the Texas power grid take center stage in this election, Beto O'Rourke is hoping it'll be enough to tip him over the edge against incumbent Governor Greg Abbott. Polls have steadily estimated O'Rourke around 10 points behind Abbott, but only time will tell if O'Rourke's 1,175 days of campaigning since his bid for Senate in 2018 will convince voters he's right for the job. As polls close around the state, Texas Democrats that we spoke to feel positive.
We want to make sure that we get the right type of people in that are going to partner with young and the elder and everything in between.
We'll be here throughout the night providing team coverage as results come in. You can also check out our coverage at SMUdailycampus.com. For SMU-TV, I'm Millie Stevenson.
While we continue tracking the Texas races, let's turn now to the national ones. SMU-TV's Tulsi Lohani joins us in studio with a look at what's happening beyond the hilltop.
Thank you, Peter. The balance of Congress shapes tonight's look at the hilltop races across the country. Voters in Georgia could split their ticket between a key gubernatorial and Senate seat, and with 45% reporting, Democrat Stacey Abrams faces off in a rematch with Governor Brian Kemp. Currently, Governor Kemp leads with 140,000 votes. The controlled Congress falls back to the race between Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and former NFL running back Herschel Walker. Issues such as gun control, the economy, and abortion rights have dominated the campaign. Currently, Senator Warnock leads by a thin margin with 40,000 votes. Bringing it back to the Lone Star State, Texas Democrats are looking at the 34th Congressional District, as the right shift of the Hispanic voting bloc has resulted in upset flips for Republicans across the country. Republican Congresswoman Mayra Flores pulled a stunning upset in a special election earlier this year following the retirement of a 5-term Democrat. Polls have been neck and neck, with Flores having a slight lead over Democrat Vicente Gonzalez. Keep an eye out for more races, as we'll be right back with more election night coverage after the break.
Habitat for Humanity is a nonprofit organization that builds homes and hope for people across the world. The Dallas area Habitat for Humanity features Restore, a home improvement store open to anyone in need.
Our stores are in areas where people could use discount home improvement items.
The Restore sells name brand items like cabinetry, appliances, and decor at a fraction of the retail price.
Looking for good deals and good stuff, and you're always going to find good deals, good stuff, in a very well condition, a very fair price.
Then every dollar that's generated out of this store then goes into the mission of building houses for Habitat for Humanity.
They're willing to help low-income families, especially in the world that we're in today. So I really thought that was honestly something really good that they were doing in the world.
For more information or ways to get involved, please visit dallasareahabitat.org.
It's been almost 6 months since the Uvalde school shooting that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. Research shows crime and safety has become an increasingly important issue to Texans in this election. SMU-TV's Grace Thompson took a look at the issue and the temperature of voters. She joins us in the studio with more. Grace, what did you learn?
There's no doubt gun control has been a divisive issue in our country for years. In Texas, there's a strong difference in opinion between rural areas of the state and more populated cities. But no matter where you live or who you voted for today, one thing everyone we talk to seems to agree on is something needs to change. The Uvalde school shooting this spring sent shockwaves through Texas, alarming parents, students, and teachers alike. In a survey this year of more than 2,000 registered Texas voters, the University of Houston's Hobby School of Public Affairs found that voters ranked crime and safety as the second most important issue that would affect their gubernatorial choice. Inflation was the first.
So it's an issue in the campaign, but it hasn't risen to the top of voters' priority list.
Political science professor Matthew Wilson says research shows a surprisingly high level of support for modest gun control restrictions, like raising age limits and banning recreational use of the most powerful weapons.
Gun control has figured as an issue in this election largely as a result of the Uvalde school shooting. That has raised the salience of gun control questions, particularly as it pertains to assault weapons. And that's where you see a real deviation between Governor Abbott's position and Beto O'Rourke's position is what level of controls or additional restriction measures might be placed on the use of assault weapons in the state.
In September's debate at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, Abbott said raising the age minimum to buy assault-style rifles would be unconstitutional under recent court rulings. Meanwhile, O'Rourke did not back down from comments he made as a 2020 presidential candidate that he would seek to confiscate assault-style rifles.
So I think the best and really the only option for us to handle gun control and to handle violent crime in general in our country is to understand that it's a big game of middle ground and everyone should be on the same team.
While Democrats and Republicans continue to spar over the issue, students we talked to from both sides of the aisle seem to agree. Voters need more education on this issue.
I think the biggest problem when it comes to talking about policies or policy reform around gun control is a miscommunication on both sides. I think Republicans are under the impression that the Second Amendment is going away, where Democrats are under the impression that guns are just going to be completely outlawed and that's the best way to handle it. And obviously we know that both of those are not really what's going on, especially if you're an informed voter.
A lot of people should be more educated about the gun laws, and I think that's the biggest thing that we can do as a country is educate. I think that's the biggest difference that we can make.
Coming up later tonight, our team coverage continues with a closer look at the High Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, another divisive issue this election. For SMU-TV, I'm Grace Thompson.
Thanks, Grace. From the state's power crisis to the Uvalde school shooting and Texas's ban on abortion, it's been a polarizing couple of years for Texans. SMU-TV's Jenny Howell has a closer look at how these issues may play out in the polls.
When the Texas power grid failed in February of 2021, hundreds died. Then, in May, 21 people died when a gunman opened fire inside Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. Shortly thereafter, Roe v. Wade was overturned, making abortions in Texas illegal after 6 weeks. Needless to say, these historic events have laid the groundwork for a contentious race over the past few months. But the question now is, how much will they ultimately affect the outcome of tonight's election?
There seemed to be, between July and September, an effort for the Democrats and O'Rourke, especially to make an argument in these areas. I think that is sort of the logic that the O'Rourke campaign works on, and it makes sense, which is to try to appeal to some of these current issues. Abortion, I think, is especially a motivating issue.
O'Rourke used the political aftermath following Governor Abbott's controversial ban on abortions in Texas and the Uvalde school shooting to energize his anti-incumbent campaign and win over more female voters.
There is a likelihood of more of women's response and then participating in the voting. And of course, abortion is a very hot issue for women and it affects them most. And so there's a lot of motivation there.
But things have not gone as planned for the Beto campaign. Early voting shows the gap between him and Abbott widening.
It's really interesting to see how different events have happened in the state in the immediate aftermath of how people are reacting, but just also how people kind of recede back into what they're used to and what they're comfortable with per se.
So, while social issues were top of mind this summer, analysts expect immigration and the economy's skyrocketing inflation rates to be the issues that ultimately influence voters, both of which are issues that Governor Abbott is banking on keeping him in office.
The general mood of inflation is affecting the entire nation, and it is affecting Texas. I think that's probably the dominant thing where the public is motivated and agitated.
Despite a national environment that looks dismal for Democrats, O'Rourke has put up enough of a fight to keep Abbott looking over his shoulder.
What you can control is, I guess, you actively speaking out and trying to be involved.
Standing up for what you believe in. It's something all students can continue doing, regardless of the outcome of tonight's election. For SMU-TV, I'm Jenny Howell.
Director of SMU Debate and Speech and Political Science Professor Ben Voth is joining us in studio. We'll hear from him after the break.
The Big Event is the largest day of collegiate community service in the nation, and we brought it to SMU in 2019, and we've seen it grow and grow over the past 4 years.
The Big Event means a day of service and giving back to the community to me, and I think it's a great way for a ton of different people to come together, no matter what their backgrounds, and give back to the community that they all share.
We went to the wildlife park and it was by a lake, and so we were picking up trash there, so it was really fun to do it.
To learn more about the Big Event, follow them on Instagram at BigEventSMU.
Southern Methodist University was founded in 1915 in Dallas, Texas, and has 107 buildings on campus.
SMU, as my alma mater, has set me up with multiple skills that will be useful to me and to everyone for the future. Some of these of which are organization and time management. These are two things that you learn in college, especially at SMU.
The 11,739 students enrolled at SMU dedicate time to their academics in order to shape the future world.
What I love about SMU is the boulevards. They're so much fun, and it's a big part of their culture and tradition here, as well as the professors. The professors are really hands-on, and they love to help you outside of class and always be there for you.
For more information on Southern Methodist University, visit www.smu.edu.
Welcome back. It's time now to hear from one of the Hilltop's political experts for his take on the election.
Joining us this hour, SMU's Director of Debate and Speech and Political Science, Professor Ben Voth. He's here to talk about the impact of public debates and candidates refusing to debate. Let's head over to SMU-TV's Bree Flores for that conversation. Bree?
Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Professor Voth, for joining us on a special night, an exciting night as well. And so one of the questions I have for you is, can you explain more about the refusal for candidates to debate with election deniers and how the Republican National Committee refuses and backed out of the presidential commissions, and how that kind of relates to the future 2024 election cycle?
Yeah, I love that question because I think debate's a really important part of our political communication process. And we did see in this election sort of the factoring of these debates and things like that. I think it probably was a mistake in different campaigns not to have a debate, although honestly research shows that incumbents tend to not have debates. They tend to lose a lot by just having a debate. I am especially concerned about the 2024 presidential elections that kind of come up next, and the RNC has taken a position that candidates should not participate in the presidential debate structure as it's currently configured. I'm hoping there can be fixes applied to that before we get to that point, because I do think it would be sad to not have political debates. But there is a lot of room for reform, both in these local races and also at the presidential level, to make, again, for me as director of debate, I think we could make debates better than they are already, and I think that's part of what's driving the reform push and causing parties like the RNC to pull out.
Right, and so political scientists are also seeing a very hyper-fixated field with issues of partisan and predestinated approaches to debate. And so as a renowned political scientist and a director of speech and debate, how can academics kind of realign that conversation?
Yeah, I think debate is the ideal way to realign these positions. We do live in a very partisan environment in the United States, more polarized than ever. But debate is inherently, and I think even my debaters sometimes miss this, it's a listening activity. It is really something that cannot work if you don't listen to the other person. And when things are really polarized and you even have some brinking of violence in societies, you really need to stop and listen. And even with the work that I do internationally and with different political groups, bringing that back home to the United States to say we need debate to reduce polarization, reduce the risk of violence and things like that. So it's a really important process to reconfigure. And I do think academics can play a role in that, in encouraging debates wherever they are. It can be a local congressional race, like a House race, or a city council member, or an attorney general or something, district attorney. Those local races need to come on to places like college campuses and have debates and things like that, where there actually is a true exchange of ideas, and the public can see candidates who are competing actually listening to each other instead of watching sound bites and social media and selected channels maybe that have been edited. The thing is, when they actually see a live interaction where somebody is actually listening to someone else, I think there's a big difference and more realism and more potential for realignment and configuration in the way that you're talking about in this question.
Right, and so I love that answer to it. And the last question I had for you was kind of relating towards the Abbott and O'Rourke debate that they had at the University of Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. So what was your take on that debate, and so what exactly stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is that Abbott chose to have the debate. And as I said earlier, incumbents rarely, especially in governor situations, the studies really show that governors who are incumbent almost never allow a challenger to come on a stage. Actually, even in the presidential debate research, it shows every incumbent president in the United States has lost their first debate with the challenger. Even President Obama, for example, in 2012 lost the first debate to Mitt Romney. Now, over time, incumbents will come back. But there's really nothing to be gained in the first debate that an incumbent has with a challenger. So the very fact that they had a debate is actually the most important thing. Now, with that said, I think that Abbott did, despite that risk, sort of set good contrast for himself that stifled the O'Rourke campaign coming into this current result. I think the fact that we didn't have more debates may signal that the O'Rourke campaign didn't see further advantage in doing more debates. Now, it's always hard to say, which campaign is kind of balking more, but I think, ironically, this is not generally what the research would support. The Abbott campaign helped themselves by going ahead and agreeing to have the O'Rourke debate. And the polling after that did sort of suggest that the lead for Abbott actually widened instead of narrowed, which that's not typical. Usually you would see a narrowing after a debate like that.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. I learned something tonight. Well, thanks again, Dr. Vo, for joining us. And let's send it now back to Peter and Grace.
Thanks, Bree. We'll be back throughout the night with more election coverage from the Hilltop right here on SMU-TV.
You can also follow our team's election coverage at smudailycampus.com and on social media with the hashtag SMUVotes2022.
Thanks for tuning in, Mustangs, and we'll be right back here throughout the night as election results come in.